3 minutes before her ship was supposed to die, Commander Ellis Ray was still under the coolant line, swearing at a bolt older than the war. The pipe hissed once, angrily, then finally gave way under her wrench. Coolant vapor hissed around her in a blue fog. She coughed, wiped her face with a fraying sleeve, and yelled over her shoulder. "Patch it! Manual seal! We've got maybe 10 seconds before the heat spike cooks deck 2. Already on it, Cap!" came Lark's voice, young, fast, confident. Too confident. Ellis didn't respond. She knew better than to praise mid-crisis. The ship jolted sideways, an external impact. Not a direct hit, but close. A flicker of light burst through the corridor's far viewport. Ray didn't need a sensor readout to know what it was. Concord plasma round. Missed by a meter. They weren't firing to kill. Not yet. They were hurting. She grabbed the rail, pulled herself upright, and moved down the passageway, boots clanging. The interior of the Wyvern was rust, patchwork, and barely lit. Duct tape held a junction panel together beside exposed wires. The ship smelled of heat, oil, and survival. "Bridge report," she called into the intercom. "Concord interceptor still on our tail," said Verma, her pilot. "They're laughing at us. Literally. They're sending us poetry now." "What kind?" "Bad haiku. About rust." Of course they were. "Engines?" she barked. "Running. And leaking pride," said Gilly, her mechanic. "We'll lose the right thruster in 10, unless you want to convert the toilet pumps again." "Do it." "Copy that." "Piss propulsion engaged." Ellis reached the bridge and took her seat with a grimace. Her back ached. Her arm was bruised from yesterday's gravity belt failure. Her mind buzzed with 12 different calculations. The Concorde ship chasing them was pristine. White metal. Razor-thin silhouette. Shields humming with energy so clean it was almost offensive. A single shot from its forward cannon could vaporize Wyvern. And still, it hadn't fired. Not really. Because to them, this wasn't a battle. It was a joke. Scrap ships like Wyvern weren't meant to survive, let alone fight. Human ships were held together with wire, rivets, and willpower. No standard issue. No gleaming alloys. Just salvage, scavenged weapons, and duct-taped brilliance. To the Concorde, humanity's junkyards were the last act of a species too stubborn to die quietly. Ellis Ray intended to make them regret that. "Spin the crate," she ordered. "Give me belly toward the asteroid belt. We're out of the field. We're not out of tricks. Do it." Verma executed the roll. The ship groaned in protest. Gilly cursed over comms. Lark shouted, "Woo!" from engineering. Then the stars shifted, and Ray saw what she needed, a field of shattered debris from an old mining station. Hundreds of chunks, floating like dead birds in the dark. She keyed the weapons manual. "Deploy mines?" "We don't have any mines. We have vacuum-pressurized battery packs full of welding gas." "You mean bombs?" "I mean solutions." The makeshift charges were ejected silently. No flare. No guidance. Just garbage, 20 canisters of flammable vapor and magnetized metal drifting into the asteroid field. Ray waited. The Concorde ship followed them in, sleek and cocky. Then she triggered the first one. Boom. The nearest rock exploded into shrapnel. The Concorde ship swerved. Elegant, but not immune. She triggered 3 more in a tight spread. The next blast clipped one of its sensor fins. That wasn't damage, it was insult. Suddenly, the Concorde ship opened fire. Ray grinned. "Now we're playing," Verma shouted. "They're charging main cannons." "Good. Turn us into the blast." "Come again?" "Angle 47. Full speed. Give me 20 seconds, then hard burn starboard." Verma didn't argue. She just flew. The plasma cannon fired. The beam raced toward them, bright, beautiful death. At the last second, Ray launched the external cargo container, filled with carbon filament and scrap metal. The cannon hit the container dead center. The explosion blinded the Concorde's sensors. The Wyvern ducked left, vanishing into the asteroid belt's shadow. They disappeared from scanners. 10 seconds later, Concorde comms went silent. Victory? No. But they'd survived. And that was louder than any kill shot. The crew exhaled. For now, they were alive. Ellis Ray stood slowly, wiped her hands, and stared at the static map on the holodable. A red zone pulsed across it, Concorde space, expanding like a disease. Her fingers hovered above the icon marked Refuge Fleet 5 days out. She tapped her brother's dog tags against the steel console. They rang like chimes. Status on the fleet? She asked. They're pinned, said Gilly. If they try to break, they'll be vapor. They need a corridor. We buy them time, she said. That was the last cargo pod, Burma noted. Ray turned slowly. Then we start throwing pieces of the Wyvern herself. Lark's voice came in from engineering. You're serious? Always. A pause. Then laughter. Real laughter. Hell yeah, Gilly said. She's gonna throw the whole ship. Not all at once, Ray smirked. Just the parts we're not using. The comm buzzed. A fleet captain hailed them. Gravel voice. Tired eyes. Commander Ray. You just made Concorde look real stupid. Not hard. Just needed the right debris. You up for leading the next wave? Ray looked around her bridge. To her mismatched chairs, flickering lights, patched wires, and her crew, waiting for her answer. Yeah, she said. But I don't lead fleets. I lead scrap. Then you're exactly what we need. She closed the comm, leaned back, and whispered to the stars. One last dirty trick. The battle was supposed to last 20 minutes. It lasted 42. Every second paid for with melted hull, bone, and heat. Ellis Ray leaned against the Wyvern's navigation array, eyes fixed on the static blurred tactical screen. Green blips marked her scrap fleet, 13 battered ships, each one a Frankenstein nightmare of human desperation. All still flying. Barely. Casualty reports? She asked, voice flat. Verma answered from the pilot chair, fingers twitching over scorched controls. Yori's gone. Took a beam head-on so the convoy could cut starboard. The Thresher's leaking plasma, but limping toward shadow cover. Everyone else is accounted for. Ellis closed her eyes. Yori had been loud, reckless, and impossible not to like. He named his ship the Doghouse because he said that's where humanity lived now, in the backyards of better species. She exhaled sharply. Tell the fleet to regroup at Delta Drift. Tell the civilians to stay dark, no beacons. Yes, ma'am. Her tone snapped harder than she meant. But she didn't correct it. Grief had to wait. Death could breathe later. She turned to Gilly, who was pulling a melted power coupling from the comm panel with pliers. How long until we've got full system sync? Gilly gave her a dry look. You want honest or optimistic? Don't care which, just pick one. 6 hours if nothing else blows up. So 12. At least you're listening again. The lights flickered. Ellis ignored it. Across the room, Lark, barely 20, face dirted with soot, watched her carefully. He didn't speak, but his eyes said enough. He hadn't liked the last order. Neither had she. But liking didn't keep ships flying. Ellis opened the fleet-wide channel. Her voice filled every busted speaker on 13 ships. Listen up. You all made history today. You shoved your middle fingers up the nose of a Concorde patrol cruiser and lived to talk about it. That means something. She paused, scanning faces on her holoscreen. Tired. Bloody. Laughing anyway. But this wasn't the fight. That was the preview. The real wave's coming. A long silence. Then Captain Soul grunted through static. How many? Ellis didn't soften it. Everything Vascatha's got. Dreadnoughts. Cloaked frigates. An AI fleet cleaner called a clean sweep node. They're not here to capture. They're here to erase. Captain Evo, an old smuggler missing half a jaw, said what everyone was thinking. They think we're not worth the effort. Just static in the comm lines. Ellis leaned forward. Then let's turn static into interference. She killed the channel and turned to her crew. We can't beat them straight. No ship here's built for that. Lark finally spoke. Then what is the plan? She keyed up a projection. A map of the relay zone. A long-forgotten mining corridor. Inside it, a dead relay tower, gutted decades ago by solar flare. Officially unusable. Old Concord channel still buried in there. My guess? They forgot to shut it. Gilly snorted. So we bounce a signal through ghost wiring, what, blind their sensors? Ellis shook her head. No. We hijack their cleaners. Verma's eyebrows rose. Their AI? The node runs on predictive pattern analysis. If we flood it with noise, old Terran signals, broken protocols, corrupted languages, it'll stall. Try to rewrite. Won't that kill our systems too? Ellis nodded. We switch to analog. Manual controls only. Full blackout. No wireless. Lark muttered. That's not a tactic. That's suicide. No, Ellis replied. That's the cost. The air thickened. No one moved. Finally, Gilly sighed. I've always wanted to fly blind through a live minefield in a rust bucket running off mood and spite. Varma grinned. Hell yeah. Let's break their goddamn algorithm. Lark didn't smile. Later, alone in the engine corridor, he found Ellis soldering cables into the manual uplink ports. No auto-aim. No AI stabilization. Just raw hands and metal. You're not telling them everything, he said. Ellis didn't stop working. You're young. You think I'm trying to win. You're not? I'm trying to stall. For what? She glanced up. For someone braver. Or smarter. Or just desperate enough to try something new. We're not the knife. We're the stone the knife breaks on. Lark leaned against the bulkhead. You think we'll die? I know I will. Haven't decided about you. A beat passed. Then he handed her a capacitor. Then die better than last time. Ellis looked at him. Saw not just fire, but flint. And nodded. Back on the bridge, the ship powered down, system by system. Lights. Guidance. Even LEX, their voice assistant AI, flickered out. Darkness. Silence. Manual only. The Wyvern floated toward the corridor. So did 12 others. In a Concord command chamber hundreds of kilometers away, Lord Strategist Vasquez reviewed the recordings from the prior skirmish. His spindly crystal fingers tapped holographic interfaces. Human patterns are chaotic, his adjutant reported. Inconsistent. Wrong, Vasquez said calmly. They are emotional. They mistake resilience for value. He leaned forward. Deploy the clean sweep node. Strip their signals. Their ships. Their legacy. Yes, strategist. Vasquez turned to the projected image of Wyvern drifting into the black. You weld your ships from trash, Commander Ray, he whispered. But trash burns all the same. Back in her cockpit, Ellis Ray whispered to her crew through the analog headset. Hold tight. This is where the beautiful part starts. They entered the corridor. And everything disappeared into silence. The corridor was dead quiet. No lights. No thrusters. No navigation pings. Just a dozen rusted ships drifting in the dark, guided by instinct, hands, and trust. Inside the Wyvern, Ellis Ray sat strapped to the captain's chair, one boot braced against the side panel, fingers gripping a worn analog yoke. A single red bulb cast dull light over her crew. Gilly sat with his eyes closed, head bobbing slightly to a song only he heard. Varma whispered launch math under his breath. Lark stared out the cracked viewport, eyes locked on nothing. Ellis broke the silence. Time? Varma replied. Concord fleet enters the corridor in 90 seconds. Clean sweep node is active. They don't see us yet. They will. Lark turned. Then we're too late. Ellis didn't look back. No. It means we're right on time. She reached under the console and pulled a cable out of its port. The screen flickered once, then shut down. From now on, they flew blind. All ships stand by, she said into the manual mic. Upload package 0. Codeword, glassbreaker. Gilly flipped a switch. A small drive on his lap blinked blue, then pulsed. Payloads live, he said. Old Earth junk, bootleg signal from pre-colony broadcasts, corrupted Concord hymns, scrambled poems, and a healthy dose of 1995 malware wrapped in Terran nursery rhymes. Good, Ellis said. Feed it into the node. Varma's eyes widened. You're serious? We're going to infect Concord's fleet AI with children's rhymes? Ellis smirked. One lullaby for every cruiser they buried. The moment the virus pinged the clean sweep node, the stars outside stuttered. Literally. Ellis gripped the yoke. They're responding. The node reacted instantly. Built to cleanse networks, it didn't anticipate dirty signals. It couldn't classify the data. It couldn't find the pattern. It couldn't find the enemy. Which meant, it had to rewrite everything. Across the Concorde fleet, displays began to flicker. In Vasquez's flagship, warning glyphs filled the bridge. His second officer spun toward him, confusion breaking through centuries of training. Strategist, the node reports recursive loop errors. Feedback flooding. Vasquez narrowed his eyes. How? We don't know. Their ships are offline. No active signal patterns. But the node is choking. He stepped forward, watching the false stars flicker. Not choking, he whispered. They've made it eat itself. Back aboard the Wyvern, alarms wailed, not enemy fire, but heat. Too much of it. Gilly yelled. External plasma burst. Looks like one of the Concorde cruisers just shot its own stabilizer. Another just vented atmosphere, Barma said. They're blind. They can't tell which blip is real. Ellis keyed the mic again. Fire teams, now. No targeting systems. Manual missiles only. Hit whatever glows brightest. She didn't wait. The Wyvern's starboard bay opened, releasing 3 torpedoes. Each was patched from scrap, guided by visual relay, and burning hot enough to be seen without radar. One hit dead on. A Concorde destroyer folded inward, cracked from inside out, bleeding green fire. Ellis breathed out once. That made one. Another's down! Lark shouted. Sol's team got one to crash into the canyon wall. A third Concorde ship attempted evasive maneuvers, but its own targeting software turned its guns inward. Confused. Betrayed. The fleet began to unravel. And still, the node kept searching for the logic. It found none. Because there was none. It wasn't war by pattern. It was rage and garbage and broken code built from grief. Inside the flagship, Vasquez stood motionless. Behind him, his bridge glowed red. Officers shouted. Systems failed. And he realized, this wasn't sabotage. It was philosophy. Humans hadn't disrupted the algorithm. They never had one to begin with. He activated fleet-wide override. All remaining ships, return to standard command. Ignore the node. Full visual lock-on. Begin thermal sweep. It was the right order. Too late. A proximity klaxon screamed aboard Wyvern. One of the cruisers had sighted them. Firing solution incoming. Brace! Ellis shouted. The blast hit them dead center. Hull tore open. Sparks rained from the ceiling. A console exploded. Varma collapsed. Lark pulled him back, shouting, bleeding. Smoke thickened. Gilly staggered from engineering, coughing. Ellis couldn't feel her left arm. The ship was still intact. Barely. But they had no engines left. They were adrift again, and this time it wasn't by choice. Eject the drive core, she gasped. Gilly blinked. What? Do it. Core is still primed. Send it right up their throat. He hesitated only a second. Then ran. On the other screen, 3 more Concorde ships went dark. One started spinning, leaking atmosphere. Another vanished completely, an internal reactor meltdown. Lark crawled to the helm. "We're done," he said quietly. "No," Ellis whispered. She pulled herself upright. "I'm not finished yet." A new signal pinged. It wasn't Concord. It was human. Ellis blinked at the screen. Civilian comm frequencies. Broadcast from the conva. Not fleeing anymore. Turning around. "New contacts incoming!" Lark shouted. 37 ships. Civilians. Miners. Haulers. Armed? No. But they're on approach. A flood of voices filled the comms. Old captains. Young pirates. Mechanics. Scientists. All answering her signal. All repeating the same phrase. "We're scrapped too." The tide turned. One Concord dreadnought, seeing the civilians swarm, hesitated. That pause was its last. A hauler packed with electromagnetic mines rammed its core. Both exploded. The Concord fleet cracked. And ran. Not tactically. Panicked. Inside the fractured wyvern, Ellis collapsed to the floor. Lark caught her as alarms blared. She looked up through the cracked viewport. Stars twinkled, pure and unbothered. "You did it," Lark whispered. She shook her head. "We broke the rules," she said. "And we made them play anyway." Ellis Ray woke up staring at the ceiling. Cracked, scorched, and vibrating from time to time, the same as before. Her ears rang. Her side ached. Something metallic was pressed against her chest. She looked down. Lark had strapped a scrap of hull plating over her ribs with emergency tape. On it someone had scrawled, "Still breathing? Good. Don't move yet." She smirked. That was Gilly's handwriting. Around her, the bridge flickered with emergency lights. Cables hung from the ceiling like vines. Smoke curled from the floor vents. But the air was breathable. She sat up slowly. One by one, her crew came into focus. Verma sat slumped in the co-pilot's chair, Burns wrapped in foil bandages. Gilly was sleeping upright, grease smeared over his face like war paint. Lark was at the helm, his hands steady, his eyes fixed on the void ahead. "You're awake," he said without turning. "Hard to sleep through whatever that was," she rasped. He chuckled softly. "You missed it. They ran. The Concorde? Turned tail and jumped out of the sector. 32 ships down. Including one of their clean fleet dreadnoughts. Our junkyard revolution might have made a point." Ellis leaned forward, groaning as pain flared through her ribs. "What about the node?" "Dead," Gilly said without opening his eyes. "Your glass breaker scrambled its logic tree so hard it forgot how to define enemy. Might still be stuck trying to calculate what a yo-yo is." Ellis snorted. Then frowned. "The civilians? Every last one made it through the corridor," Lark said. "They're in orbit around K9 station, forming a refugee cluster. Broadcasting something they're calling the Scrap Accord. You're a legend now." She let that sit. A legend. From the woman who'd once left a fleet to die because the odds were bad. Now they called her the one who broke the Concorde's line with welding gas, duct tape, and nursery rhymes. "I didn't do it alone," she said. "No," Lark replied. "But you made us believe we could." Outside, the stars were still scattered across the black like fractured glass. A few Concorde wrecks drifted in silence, torn open, glowing like dying coals. One cruiser was still mostly intact, its command beacon pulsing weakly. Ellis keyed into the comms. "Commander Ray of the Wyvern to Concorde vessel Vasquez's judgment. You still breathing in there?" A long pause. Then, "Strategist Vasquez." "Confirmed." His voice was slower now. Not injured, uncertain. As though reality hadn't caught up yet. "You fought well," he said. "You lost to garbage," Ellis replied. "How's that feel?" "I didn't lose to garbage," he said. "I lost to you. That's worse." Ellis tapped her knuckles against the side panel. "You underestimated what makes us dangerous." I overestimated what made us civilized. She paused. That your apology? No. Just an observation. She smiled faintly. I'm transmitting your coordinates to the Accord, she said. You'll be picked up and held. If you're lucky, they'll ask what went wrong. I'll tell them everything. Good. Start with the rhymes. She cut the calm. Outside, scavenger ships were already moving toward the wrecks. Not to loot, but to recycle. Everything would be repurposed. It always was. That was the human way. Got engine power? She asked. Enough to limp? Gilly grunted, now awake. No jump drive, but she flies. Ellis stood with effort. Picked up her brother's dog tags. Held them in her palm. The war wasn't over. Not really. But something had shifted. The myth of Concord invincibility was broken. Not by a weapon. Not by a new supertech. By scrap. Set a course for K9, she said. Lark nodded. Want to radio ahead? Let them know. No, she said. Let them see us come in smoking. Let them know exactly who we are. As the Wyvern creaked forward, the camera would have pulled back, if this were a film. Past the dented hull. The patched solar sails. The mismatched wings. A ship that looked like a corpse floating through space. And yet at its core something glowed. Pride. Proof. A message sent in fire and static to every corner of the galaxy. We are not what we used to be. We are what we had to become.